Well, the first thing that needs to be done is to scotch the virus. The new case counts are, as always, hopelessly flawed. We guess that Australia detects pretty much every coronavirus case. We guess that Canada and Germany detect 3/4, that the United States detects about half of new cases now, and detected a much smaller fraction last spring and summer, and even into the fall. And we guess that the United Kingdom, while a case count per 100,000 roughly equal to the United States since mid-December, but 60% more deaths, that suggests that Boris Johnson's MBGA government is only detecting a third. An Australian result was not out of reach for the United States except for Trump. A German or Canadian response and result was definitely something we should have been able to achieve. We didn't. 1 in every 100,000 Americans is now dying of COVID-19 every day. That means that roughly 1 in every 500 Americans is catching COVID every day. That's 700,000 per day, I think, and we are only vaccinating 1 million. So far, we've vaccinated at 10% of the population with at least one dose, while American Samoa has vaccinated 20% and Israel has vaccinated 60%. Until the virus is scotched, opening up the country to restore full employment, that's a fool's errand. The government needs to be focused on relief, on getting families the incomes they need to live, and avoiding the permanent shutdowns of businesses that we will want to have here when summer comes around and the virus is scotched. But after relief, when the virus is scotched, then it will be time for recovery. And recovery is going to start from a very bad place. We have 143 million people at work right now. We want to have more like 155 million. This 12 million job gap, we really cannot and should not try to fill it right now. It consists overwhelmingly of workers who do not want to be at work during this plague, either for personal safety or for caring for family reasons. Plus workers who can't work because there are no customers, because the absent customers really do not want to buy during the plague, also for personal and family safety reasons. We could try to shift those 12 million people into other sectors where people are willing to buy things, and it would have been worth trying to do that last March, but it is not worthwhile right now trying to rejigger the economy to find those 12 million people other jobs in other sectors, because we are highly likely to want them back in their old sectors by late summer at the latest. So right now we stand pat, and as we approach herd immunity, we reopen. At the moment, we are at perhaps 120 million people with at least partial immunity, 85 million with past infection, perhaps, 35 million with at least temporary immunity from one dose vaccination. With that, today, total of 120 million, growing at 2 million per day. That would mean June 1st for being close enough to herd immunity, with everyone, or with enough people having even gotten the disease or gotten their second dose. And will the economy then pick up its mat and walk? Will people breathe easier and stop kind of avoiding restaurants and in-person kind of haircuts and so forth? Will people then return to the businesses they worked for in February 2020, and will those businesses reopen? Now, the experience of 2008 to 2010 strongly suggests that they will not. Back then, there was not a biological plague, but there was a psychological and financial plague. There was a collapse of finance and credit, that caused the absence of financing for businesses and of customers. An absence of financing of businesses and customers for products, and that produced an employment gap back then of about our current magnitude now. This financial and credit plague, however, was over by the start of 2010. Interest rate risk premia had normalized. Financial institutions were recapitalized. Asset prices had substantially recovered. There was no fundamental reason why the businesses that were in operation in December 2007 and profitable then could not have resumed operation in 2010 and been profitable then. You may object, but we needed to move workers out of construction. As Chicago economist John Cochrane claimed in late 2008, workers pounding nails in Nevada need to find something else to do, hence we need a recession. But Cochrane and company never did their arithmetic. Employment in construction was back below its long-run average share of the economy by December 2007. The fundamental sectoral labor adjustment in response to the collapse of the housing boom had already then been accomplished, and it had been accomplished without mass unemployment. So there was no fundamental reason for the economy to stay depressed from 2010 on, and yet there was no rapid recovery. There were no green shoots. There was no recovery summer. People did not return to the jobs in the businesses, or to the types of jobs and businesses that they had been working in December 2007 overnight, or even in years. People needed to be pulled back into the labor market by stronger aggregate demand, and a Federal Reserve desperate to normalize interest rates in its asset portfolio, fearful of letting inflation even kiss 2% per year, let alone climb above it even for a short period of time. Such a Federal Reserve did not help. And a Republican Party eager to hamstring Barack Obama by demanding massive deficit reduction immediately and demanding it without any tax increases did not help. And, I don't like to say this, but it's kind of the true thing to say. An Obama administration that was conflicted and sharply divided between those who saw the situation clearly, those who really believed that deficit reduction was job one, and those who saw some of the situation but who thought they were being really, really clever by pretending to prioritize deficit reduction. They did not really help the situation either. But might things be different this time? They might. And there is one very important way in which the situation is different that might matter. The way in which things are different is that there are now $3 trillion of extra savings on household balance sheets as a result of the CARES Act and other legislation and programs over the past year. There was no analog to this back in 2010. Then the shortfall in spending was tied to a shortfall in income, with no massive household asset accumulations. There were no extra piles of savings that had raised people's wealth-to-income ratios substantially above their previous targets. But now there are. Now, is this extra $3 trillion burning a hole in people's pockets right now? If people spend 5% of it in the year after they feel safe from the plague, that would boost economic growth over the year from mid-2021 to mid-2022 by 0.75 of a percentage point, relative to mid-2020 to mid-2021. If they spend 10%, the boost would be 1.5 percentage points. If we spend 20%, the boost would be 3 points. We don't know what they're going to be doing. We will, as my colleague Andres Rodriguez-Clare said half a week ago, learn a lot about savings behavior in the American economy over the next year. I think we are as likely to see 20% as 5%, because I have been persuaded by Chris Carroll's theory that American savers are prudent but impatient. Those with money are anxious to spend as long as they convince themselves that they are unlikely to run out, and find themselves even temporarily squeezed. Thus, this time may well be different. I would not be surprised to find this time, because of the great savings accumulation, itself for the result of the wise relief and income support policies of 2020, that we do get the semi-spontaneous market-led recovery without extraordinary government support and action going forward that we did not get after 2010. So does that mean we should not enact extraordinarily fiscal support, for the economy right now? Does that mean that the Biden administration is barking up the wrong tree? as are Pelosi and Schumer in moving their $1.9 trillion reconciliation, relief, support, and stimulus bill right now. Edelberg and Scheiner have produced estimates starting from CBO guesses as to how much the economy is going to recover, plus their Keynesian analyses of the effects of the $1.9 trillion relief bill. And their estimates are as good as any and better as most. Their forecasts are reliable. They are extremely smart and hard-working professional economists. Edelberg and Scheiner is a good way from which to start thinking about this. And I think they may well be pessimistic as to what the stimulus doesn't pass track of the economy is. And they say that enacting the stimulus will push the economy up above true potential output, up above full employment, by a not inconsiderable amount. So does that mean Biden is barking up the wrong tree? I do not think so. First, we might be very wrong about what the central tendency likely going forward is. I think Edelberg and Scheiner are a little bit pessimistic. They might be way optimistic. Uncertainty is enormous. And even if they are right about the central tendency of what happens without stimulus, and even if I am right and the actual outlook is significantly rosier, the balance of risks is extraordinarily asymmetric. And it's that balance of risks that calls for Biden's $1.9 trillion reconciliation, relief, support, and stimulus bill as desirable insurance against a repeat of the anemic post-2010 recovery.